The silence in the city memorial hospital room was heavy, a thick blanket punctuated only by the rhythmic pulse of the monitors and the soft, constant hiss of an oxygen tank. Cool morning light sliced through the half-drawn blinds, striping the pale face of Ashley, who, at only 23, looked far beyond her years. Her small frame seemed lost in the vastness of the white sheets, her once vibrant brown hair now limp and fanned out against the pillow. Her eyes, usually so bright, were sunken, rimmed with dark circles that spoke of a long, silent battle. Beside her, perched on chairs that dwarfed them, were Harper and Willow, Ashley's 4-year-old twin daughters. They were identical in their golden curls and wide blue eyes, but polar opposites in spirit. Harper, the elder by minutes, was a serious, watchful soul. Willow, restless and chatty, couldn't stop twisting the hem of her small dress. Gathering a flicker of strength, Ashley pushed herself up, a motion that triggered a deep, rattling cough. The harsh sound made the twins flinch. "Mommy?" Willow's voice was a trembling whisper as she reached for her mother's arm. Ashley managed a faint smile, a mask for the pain. "It's all right, my love," she whispered. "Come here, my little ones. Mommy needs to talk to you about something very important." The twins drew close, their faces a mixture of childish curiosity and adult worry. Ashley took a small hand in each of hers, feeling the stark contrast of her own cool skin against their warmth. "Harper, Willow," Ashley began, her voice gaining a desperate edge, "you know Mommy is really sick, right?" The girls nodded, their lower lips trembling. "There's a man," Ashley continued, her voice faltering, "a very important man who can help Mommy. His name is Ethan Carter." "Ethan Carter," Harper repeated, her tone serious, as if memorizing a vital piece of intelligence. "That's right, sweetie," Ashley said, a ghost of a smile touching her lips. "He works in a very tall, beautiful building made of glass. It looks like a giant mirror touching the sky." The twins' eyes widened, their young minds conjuring images of a crystal fortress in the clouds. Ashley reached under her pillow, her hand shaking as she retrieved a folded piece of paper. "Here is the address where you can find him," she said, handing the note to Harper. "But Mommy," Willow interrupted, her brow furrowed in confusion. "Why do we have to go? Why can't Mr. Carter come here?" Ashley closed her eyes for a beat, battling a wave of tears. When she opened them, her gaze was resolute. "Because, my darling," she explained gently, "important people sometimes get so busy that we have to go to them. And right now, you two are the only ones who can do this for me." The twins exchanged a glance before their attention snapped back to their mother. "We'll go, Mommy," Harper said with a gravity far beyond her years. "Yes, we'll find Mr. Carter and bring him here to help you," Willow added, nodding with fierce determination. Ashley smiled, a genuine one this time that briefly lit up her weary face. "My brave little girls," she murmured, pulling them into a fragile but tight hug. Just then, a nurse entered. Brittany was young, with a kind face and red hair pulled back in a messy bun, her green eyes softening at the family tableau. "Good morning, Ashley," she greeted softly. "How are we doing today?" Ashley reluctantly let her daughters go, sinking back against the pillows, the small effort leaving her breathless. "I've been better, Brittany," she replied with a weak smile. Brittany checked the monitors and adjusted the IV drip, her gaze catching the paper in Harper's hand and the determined set of the twins' jaws. "What do we have here?" she asked with a curious smile. Willow, bursting with the news, spoke up. "We have an important mission. We need to find Mr. Ethan Carter in a giant glass building so he can help our Mommy." Brittany looked at Ashley, who offered a slight, tired nod. "Well," Brittany said slowly, "it sounds like you have a very important task. How about I help you with this mission?" The twins' eyes lit up. "Would you really do that?" Harper asked, her voice filled with awe. Brittany smiled warmly. "Of course. All great missions need a team, don't they?" Ashley felt a wave of overwhelming gratitude. "Brittany, I can't ask you to do this." "You're not asking, Ashley." "I'm offering," Brittany said firmly. "My shift ends in half an hour. I can take the girls to that address and make sure they get there safely." Tears finally spilled from Ashley's eyes. "Thank you," she whispered, her voice thick with emotion. Brittany gave Ashley's shoulder a gentle squeeze before turning to the twins. "Well, my little adventurers, how about you get ready for our mission? You can wait for me in the playroom while I check on your mom." The twins scrambled off their chairs, a mix of excitement and nerves playing across their faces. They approached the bed for one last hug. Ashley held her daughters with all the strength she could muster. "Remember, my loves," she murmured, "no matter what happens, you are strong, brave, and very loved." The twins kissed their mother's cheeks and followed Brittany, their excited chatter echoing down the hallway. Alone now, Ashley let her tears flow freely. She looked out the window as the rising sun painted the sky, a new day dawning with the faint promise of change, of salvation. Ashley closed her eyes, exhausted but resolute. Her daughters were her messengers, carrying not just an address but the fate of their family. She prayed silently, bargaining for more time, for a chance to watch her girls grow, for an opportunity to right the wrongs of the past. The beep of the monitors filled the silence, a stark reminder that every breath was a gift. And somewhere in the city, in a towering glass skyscraper, Ethan Carter went about his life, completely unaware that two small messengers were on their way to turn his world upside down. The morning sun glinted off the sleek, mirrored facade of the Carter Innovations HQ, a dazzling spectacle that made Harper and Willow stop in their tracks, their eyes wide. The building soared into the sky just as their mother had described, a modern titan of glass and steel that dominated the city skyline. The twins, clutching hands, shared a look that passed courage back and forth between them. Harper, ever the stoic one, squeezed Willow's hand and gave a firm, determined nod. With tentative steps, they navigated the imposing revolving doors, their small forms momentarily warped in the polished glass. "Remember what Mommy said?" Harper whispered, her voice a serious hush. "We can't give up." Willow swallowed nervously, her golden curls bouncing as she nodded. Pushing through together, they emerged into the building's stunningly modern lobby. The space was as impressive as the exterior. A polished marble floor reflected the recessed lighting and abstract crystal fixtures hanging from the cavernous ceiling. The walls were a cool, minimalist white, adorned with bold modern art and architectural plants in sleek, elegant pots. The twins felt impossibly small and out of place in this world of cool luxury. Their simple dresses and scuffed shoes a stark contrast to the opulence. Timidly, they approached the reception desk, a massive block of dark wood and gleaming chrome. Behind it, a woman in a sharp business suit eyed them with a mixture of surprise and veiled annoyance. "May I help you?" the receptionist asked, her tone professional but cool. Willow looked to Harper, deferring to her older sister by a few minutes. Harper took a deep breath, stepping forward with purpose. "Please, ma'am," Harper began, her small voice unwavering. "We need to speak to Mr. Ethan Carter. It's very important." The receptionist arched a perfectly sculpted eyebrow. "I'm sorry, but Mr. Carter is in a very important meeting. He does not receive visitors without a prior appointment. Especially," she paused, her eyes flicking over the girls, children. Willow, sensing her sister's resolve wavering, piped up. "But it's an emergency," she exclaimed, her voice trembling just a little. "We really need his help." The receptionist's expression softened for a fraction of a second before her professional mask snapped back into place. "I understand you're worried, girls, but I can't interrupt Mr. Carter. Maybe you could come back another day with an adult?" Harper felt tears pricking at her eyes, but blinked them back, remembering her promise to her mother. "Please," she begged, "it's a matter of life and death. Only Mr. Carter can help. The receptionist sighed, clearly uncomfortable with the developing scene. "Look, I'm really sorry, but I can't let you go upstairs. It's against company policy. Why don't you head home and ask an adult to call to make an appointment?" The twins exchanged a look of desperation. Willow began to cry softly, fat tears rolling down her cheeks, while Harper fought to maintain her composure. "We can't leave," Harper insisted, her voice gaining strength despite the lump in her throat. "We promised we wouldn't give up. Please, we just need 5 minutes with Mr. Carter." The receptionist glanced around the lobby, uneasy as a few heads began to turn their way. "I'm sorry, girls, but you really have to go now. I can't help you." With heavy hearts, Harper took Willow's hand, and the two sisters trudged out of the building. But they didn't leave. Instead, they sat on the wide concrete steps outside, resolved to wait for as long as it took. The hours crawled by. The twins watched a steady stream of impeccably dressed executives and important clients sweep past them, none offering a second glance. The receptionist occasionally shot them a look through the glass doors, her expression a mix of irritation and what looked like concern. Meanwhile, on the 50th floor, Ethan Carter was deep in a critical meeting with international investors. Dressed in a flawless bespoke suit, he radiated an aura of confidence and control as he detailed the plans for the company's latest sustainable tech initiative. Midway through his presentation, his personal assistant, Megan, slipped discreetly into the conference room. She approached Ethan and whispered in his ear, "Mr. Carter, I'm sorry to interrupt, but there's an unusual situation in the lobby. 2 small girls are insisting on seeing you. They refuse to leave and say it's a matter of life and death." Ethan frowned, his focus momentarily broken. Something about the description of the girls sparked a strange, inexplicable feeling inside him, a pull of curiosity and unease. "How long have they been there?" he asked, his voice low. "A few hours, sir." The receptionist tried several times to make them leave, but they refused to go. Ethan glanced at the expectant faces around the table and made an instant decision. "Ladies and gentlemen, I apologize, but I need a brief break. Please help yourselves to coffee and refreshments. I'll return in a few minutes." Ignoring the surprised murmurs, Ethan strode out of the meeting room and headed for the private elevator, Megan hurrying to keep up. "Sir, are you sure you want to interrupt the meeting because of this?" Megan asked, her tone laced with concern. Ethan shook his head, unable to articulate the impulse that was driving him. "There's something about this situation, Megan. I need to see these girls myself." The elevator descended smoothly to the ground floor. When the doors slid open, Ethan stepped out, his eyes scanning the expansive lobby until they settled on 2 small figures huddled on the steps outside. Harper and Willow, exhausted and disheartened after hours of waiting, hardly registered the tall, well-dressed man's approach. It was only when he knelt before them, his kind blue eyes on their level, that they realized their vigil might be over. "Hello," said Ethan softly, his voice deep and gentle. "I hear you've been looking for me. I'm Ethan Carter. How can I help you?" The twins looked at each other, surprise and a flicker of hope illuminating their tired faces. Harper, summoning her courage, held out a trembling hand with the now crinkled piece of paper. "Please, sir," she said, her voice barely a whisper. "We need your help. It's very important." Ethan took the paper, a strange sense of foreboding washing over him. As he unfolded it, he saw a hastily scrawled hospital address. "Who's in the hospital?" he asked gently. Willow, tears welling in her eyes, answered, "Someone very important to us, our mother. She said only you can save her." A wave of compassion for the girls swept over Ethan. There was something about them, an echo of familiarity that resonated deep within him, though he couldn't place it. "Did you come all the way here by yourselves?" he asked, a note of worry in his voice. Harper nodded. "We promised we wouldn't give up until we spoke to you." Ethan stood, his mind racing. He had no idea who was in that hospital or why he was supposedly the only one who could help, but a powerful gut feeling told him he had to find out. "Megan," he called to his assistant, who had been watching from a distance, "cancel all my appointments for the rest of the day and call my driver immediately." Sensing the urgency in her boss's tone, Megan nodded and quickly stepped away to make the calls. Ethan turned back to the twins, forcing a reassuring smile. "I'll take you to the hospital right now. You were very brave to come here." The girls nodded, relief finally washing over their weary faces. Minutes later, they were in the back of Ethan's luxurious sedan, gliding through the city streets toward the hospital. The twins, nestled in the plush black leather, looked small and fragile. Ethan tried to get his thoughts in order. Who could this woman be? Why was he her only hope? And why did these girls seem so achingly familiar, even though he was certain he'd never met them? "Can you tell me who's in the hospital?" Ethan asked gently. Harper and Willow exchanged a glance. "She told us not to say," Harper answered, "just to bring you there." Ethan nodded, respecting the cryptic instruction. "All right, we'll find out together when we get there." The rest of the drive was passed in a tense silence, punctuated only by the twins' occasional directions. Ethan used the time to steel himself for whatever he was about to face, though nothing could have prepared him. When they finally pulled up to City Memorial Hospital, Ethan felt a strange knot of anxiety tighten in his stomach. He followed the twins through the sterile white corridors, each step feeling heavier, bringing him closer to something significant, something life-altering. At last, they stopped before a closed door. Harper and Willow looked up at Ethan, waiting. Taking a deep breath, he put his hand on the doorknob, bracing for the unknown. As he pushed the door open, the first thing Ethan saw was the frail figure of a woman in the hospital bed, tethered to a web of machines. The steady, rhythmic beep of the heart monitor filled the room, a constant reminder of life's fragility. For a moment, Ethan froze in the doorway, the world narrowing to that one bed, that one face. The woman opened her eyes slowly, blinking as she focused on the figure in the doorway. Her eyes widened with shock and recognition. "Ethan," she whispered, her voice a raw, weak sound. You actually came." The name, the face, hit him like a physical blow, knocking the air from his lungs. It was Ashley, his younger sister, whom he hadn't seen or spoken to in 6 long years. "Ashley," he said softly, his voice thick with a flood of emotions. "I'm here now." The twins rushed to their mother's bedside, chattering excitedly about their successful mission. But for Ethan, time seemed to grind to a halt. He looked at the girls again, really seeing them this time. The golden hair, the blue eyes, the spray of tiny freckles across their noses. They were a perfect miniature reflection of Ashley as a child. And in that stunning, heart-stopping moment, Ethan realized he wasn't just being reunited with a long-lost sister. He was discovering a family he never knew he had. His heart hammering against his ribs, his mind reeling, he took a step toward the bed, ready to confront the past and, just maybe, build a new future. The hospital room was steeped in a tense silence, broken only by the rhythmic beep of the heart monitors and the soft hiss of the oxygen tank. The cold, impersonal fluorescent lights contrasted with the gravity of the moment unfolding. Harper and Willow rushed to Ashley's bedside, their small hands clutching the metal rails as their faces lit with a blend of relief and pride. Their eyes sparkled with the excitement of a mission accomplished, barely containing the thrill of their adventure. "Mommy, we did it!" Willow exclaimed, her voice shaking with emotion. "We brought Mr. Carter, just like you asked." "Yes, Mommy," Harper added, her usually serious tone now brimming with enthusiasm. "We waited all day, but we didn't give up." Ashley, pale and visibly weak, managed a weary smile for her daughters. Her eyes, though shadowed by deep circles, gleamed with love and pride. "My brave girls," she whispered, her voice raspy. "You were so courageous. I'm so proud of you." While the twins shared every detail of their journey, Ethan remained frozen in the doorway, his body stiff with the shock of the revelation. Ashley, his baby sister, whom he hadn't seen in 6 long years, lay there as a ghost of the bright teenager he remembered, and the twins, his nieces, whose existence he had known nothing about, were living proof of lost time and wasted opportunities. Slowly, as if moved by an unseen force, Ethan walked over to the bed. Each step felt heavy, burdened by years of silence, regret, and unanswered questions. The sound of his shoes on the linoleum echoed in the room, marking the physical and emotional distance he needed to cross. "Ashley," he said, his voice barely above a whisper. I had no idea." Ashley turned her gaze to her brother, her eyes shining with a mixture of relief, hurt, hope, and fear. For a moment time seemed to roll back, and Ethan saw the little girl who used to follow him everywhere, begging to be included in his adventures. "Ethan," she replied, her voice weak but steady. "Thank you for coming. I wasn't sure you would." The silence that followed was thick, loaded with words left unsaid and feelings long suppressed. The twins glanced from their mother to the tall man, sensing the tension in the air, but not fully understanding its origin. They shifted restlessly, their small faces scrunched in confusion. Finally, Ethan broke the silence, his voice strained with emotion. "What happened, Ashley? Why didn't you reach out to me before? All these years." Ashley closed her eyes for a moment, as though gathering strength. When she opened them again, there was a determined look he recognized, one she used to have as a child, facing a particularly tough challenge. "It's a long story, Ethan," she began, "one that involves pride, fear, and a lot of mistakes. On both sides." Ethan pulled up a chair next to the bed, sitting down heavily. The leather squeaked under his weight, an oddly loud sound in the quiet room. "Tell me," he asked gently. "Please, I need to know." Ashley glanced fondly at her daughters, who were still clinging to the rails of the bed, their large, curious eyes darting between their mother and their newly discovered uncle. "Harper, Willow, sweethearts," Ashley said softly, "why don't you go to the cafeteria and get a snack? I'm sure you're hungry after your big adventure." The girls hesitated, reluctant to leave their mother's side. Willow bit her lip, a question clearly forming in her mind. "But, Mommy," she began, "who is this man? Why is he so important?" Ashley smiled sadly. "That's a story for another time, sweetheart. Right now, please go get something to eat. I promise I'll explain everything later." With one last curious look at Ethan and a tight hug for Ashley, the twins finally left the room, leaving the siblings alone with years of silence and secrets between them. Ashley waited until the sound of her daughter's footsteps faded down the corridor before turning her attention back to Ethan. She took a deep breath, the effort making her cough lightly. "Idiopathic pulmonary fibrosis," she began, her voice low and weary. "It's a rare, progressive disease. My lungs are scarring, making it harder and harder to breathe. The doctors? They're not very optimistic." Ethan felt his heart constrict, the reality of the situation hitting him full force. "How long?" He couldn't finish the question, the words catching in his throat. "Without a transplant." "Months, maybe weeks," Ashley replied, the bluntness of her words clashing with their gravity. "But finding a compatible donor? Well, the odds aren't exactly in my favor." Ethan stood abruptly, unable to stay still. He began pacing back and forth, running his hands through his hair in frustration. "Why didn't you reach out to me, Ashley? I could have helped. All these years, I could have done something." Ashley let out a bitter laugh that quickly turned into a harsh cough. Ethan rushed to her side, offering her a cup of water. Once she settled, she continued. "Pride, Ethan. The same stubborn pride that tore us apart 6 years ago. I wanted to prove I could manage on my own, that I didn't need your help, or our parents. And then, when I found out about the twins, it felt too late to go back." Ethan bowed his head, guilt weighing on him like a lead cloak. "I should have looked for you," he admitted, his voice laden with regret. "After that fight, I thought you'd come back when you were ready." And then, as more time passed, "The harder it got," Ashley finished. "I know. I felt it too. Each passing day felt like another stone in the wall between us." A silence settled over them, years of unspoken words hanging in the air like restless ghosts. "The girls," Ethan finally spoke, his voice gentle and filled with awe. "They're beautiful, Ashley, so brave and determined. Why didn't you tell me about them?" Ashley smiled faintly, a glimmer of maternal pride in her tired eyes. "They're my light, Ethan, my reason to keep fighting every day. When I found out I was pregnant, it had already been 2 years since we'd last spoken. You were building your empire, appearing on magazine covers. I figured there was no place in your life for a single pregnant sister." Ethan felt tears burn his eyes, the truth of her words hitting him like a punch in the gut. "There always would have been room for you, Ashley. Always. I'm sorry I made you feel you couldn't come to me." At that moment the door opened and the twins came in, carrying snack bags and juice boxes. They paused, sensing the emotional atmosphere in the room. "It's all right, sweethearts," Ashley reassured them, opening her arms to her daughters. "Come here, I want to introduce you properly. This is Ethan, my brother, your uncle." The girls' eyes widened in surprise and curiosity. Ethan knelt down to their level, his heart pounding at the prospect of meeting his nieces. "Hello, Harper and Willow," he said softly. "I'm so happy to meet you. Truly." The twins glanced at their mother, who nodded encouragingly, before timidly moving closer to Ethan. "Are you really our uncle?" Harper asked, her voice serious and analytical. "Yes, I am," Ethan replied, a genuine smile lighting up his face for the first time since entering the room. "Is Mommy going to get better now?" Willow asked, her voice small and hopeful. "Is that why we had to find you?" Ethan felt his heart clench at his niece's innocent and hopeful question. He looked at Ashley, seeing the fear and hope in her eyes. In that moment, he made a decision that would change all their lives. "I will do everything in my power to help your mom," he promised, his voice firm. "Absolutely everything. I won't give up, no matter how hard it gets. We're in this together now." Ashley reached out her hand, and Ethan took it, feeling the weak pressure of her fingers. In that touch, years of hurt and resentment began to melt away, replaced by a shared determination to fight not just for Ashley's health, but to mend the family bond that had been neglected for so long. While the twins settled beside their mother, sharing snacks and excitedly recounting their day, Ethan watched the scene with a mixture of newfound love and a profound sense of responsibility. He knew the road ahead would be difficult, filled with medical and emotional challenges, but he was determined not to fail his family again. The future was uncertain, overshadowed by Ashley's illness and years of separation, but in that hospital room, at that very moment, a spark of hope was ignited. A broken family had taken its first steps toward healing not just the body, but the heart. And Ethan silently vowed to do everything in his power to keep that spark alive, no matter what the future held for them. The sound of hurried footsteps echoed through the hospital corridors as Ethan Carter walked with purpose, his cell phone pressed to his ear. His normally calm and controlled voice now carried palpable urgency. "I don't care how much it costs," he said, frustration clear. "I want Dr. Hine here as soon as possible. Use the company jet if necessary." Hanging up, Ethan paused for a moment, leaning against the cold hallway wall. He closed his eyes, allowing himself a brief moment of vulnerability away from his sister's and niece's eyes. The weight of it all hit him hard, his sister fighting for her life, 2 nieces he barely knew, and years of distance that now seemed like an insurmountable chasm. Inside Ashley's room, Harper and Willow sat on a small couch, their big, curious eyes following every move of their newly discovered uncle. They whispered among themselves, trying to understand the sudden change in their lives. "Why does Uncle Ethan look so worried?" Harper asked in a hushed tone, her observant nature picking up on the tension in the air. Willow shrugged, her golden curls bouncing. Maybe he can help Mommy get better with all his money. Ashley, lying in the hospital bed, listened to her daughter's conversation with a mix of love and concern. Her feelings toward Ethan were a storm of gratitude for his immediate help, lingering resentment for the years of silence, and a cautious hope that maybe, just maybe, it wasn't too late to rebuild their family bonds. Ethan re-entered the room, his expression a mask of determination. "Ashley," he began, his voice gentler than usual, "I'm bringing in the top pulmonary specialists in the country. Dr. Hines will be here tomorrow for a consultation." Ashley nodded faintly, offering a tired smile. "Thank you, Ethan, but you don't have to do all this. I know how expensive it must be." "Don't even think that," Ethan interrupted, his tone firm. "Money is not an issue. Your health is all that matters right now." His words lingered in the air, loaded with meaning. For Ethan, it was a shot at redemption, a chance to make up for the lost years. For Ashley, it was a painful reminder of everything that could have been different if they had stayed in contact. The twins watched the exchange curiously. Harper, always the keen observer, noticed the tension beneath the surface. "Mommy," she asked, "why didn't you ever tell us about Uncle Ethan before?" The room fell silent, the innocent question exposing old wounds not yet healed. Ashley and Ethan shared a look, years of unsaid words passing between them. "It's complicated, sweetheart," Ashley finally answered, her voice trembling. "Sometimes grown-ups make mistakes and drift apart, but what matters is that we're together now." Ethan felt the weight of guilt pressing down on him again. He moved closer to the bed, taking Ashley's frail hand in his. "I'm so sorry," he said, his voice thick with emotion, "for everything. For the lost years, for not being there when you needed me." Ashley returned the pressure in his hand gently, tears bright in her eyes. "I'm sorry too, Ethan. Pride and fear kept us apart for far too long." The moment was interrupted by the arrival of the medical team. Dr. Davis, the pulmonologist overseeing Ashley's case, entered, followed by 2 residents. His serious expression did not bode well. "Miss Carter, Mr. Carter," he greeted them, his tone professional. "We have the results of the latest tests and, well, the news is not good." Ethan straightened his posture, radiating authority. "What are our options, Doctor?" Dr. Davis hesitated, glancing at the twins. Sensing his cue, Ethan turned to his nieces. "Harper, Willow, why don't you go to the cafeteria and get something for your mom?" The girls protested at first, but after a reassuring look from Ashley, they left the room reluctantly. With the children out of earshot, Dr. Davis continued. "The disease is progressing faster than we anticipated. Without a transplant, we're talking about weeks, perhaps a couple of months at most." The shock of this news hit Ethan and Ashley like a punch to the gut. Ashley closed her eyes, silent tears rolling down her cheeks. Ethan, for his part, went into action mode. "What are our options?" he demanded. "There must be something we can do?" Dr. Davis sighed. "There are some experimental treatments that can slow the disease's progression, but they're expensive and not guaranteed. The only real cure would be a lung transplant." "Then let's do it," Ethan said without hesitation. "Put Ashley at the top of the transplant list. I'll make any donations needed to the hospital. Just make it happen." The doctor shook his head sadly. "It's not that simple, Mr. Carter. Even with your influence, finding a compatible donor in time will be a huge challenge. And the procedure itself is extremely risky in Ashley's current state." Ethan felt frustration build inside him. All his wealth and power seemed useless in the face of his sister's fragile life. "There has to be something we can do," he insisted, his voice betraying his desperation. Ashley, who had remained silent, spoke softly. "Ethan, please. I don't want my last days to be a fight against the inevitable. I want to spend whatever time I have left with my daughters. With you." Her words tore at Ethan's heart. He found himself torn between the desperate desire to save his sister and respecting her wishes. Guilt for the lost time gnawed at him, fueling his determination to do something, anything, to fix this. "I'm not giving up on you, Ashley," he said firmly. "Not now that we finally found each other again." Dr. Davis, sensing the tension, stepped in. "Perhaps we can reach a middle ground. We can start some less invasive treatments to buy more time while we continue to search for a suitable donor." Ethan and Ashley exchanged looks, years of unspoken communication resurfacing. Finally, Ashley nodded slightly. "All right," she agreed. "But promise me, Ethan, that you won't lose yourself in this fight. My daughters will need you, no matter what happens." Ethan swallowed hard, the gravity of the situation hitting him with full force. He nodded, determination gleaming in his eyes. "I promise, Ashley, I'll be here for all of you, no matter what happens." As Dr. Davis began explaining the next steps, Ethan found himself facing decisions that would shape not only Ashley's future, but the future of their entire family. The weight of responsibility was crushing, but he was resolved not to fail his sister again. Outside the room, Harper and Willow returned with snacks, unaware of the life and death decisions being made behind that door. Their world, already turned upside down, was about to change even more as their mother's fight for life intensified. The hospital corridor was quiet, except for the occasional beep of machines and the distant murmur of conversations. Ethan Carter sat in an uncomfortable chair, his expensive suit a stark contrast to the sterile surroundings. His eyes were fixed on the closed door of Ashley's room, where she was undergoing yet another round of tests. The last 48 hours had been a roller coaster of emotions, with doctors coming and going, explaining procedures, and discussing treatment options. Ethan had agreed to everything, signed every form, determined to give Ashley every possible chance. Now, in this rare moment of tense quiet, the memories he had kept carefully locked away began to resurface. 6 years ago, the night everything changed. Ethan closed his eyes, the scene playing vividly in his mind. Ashley, then 17, her eyes blazing with anger and hurt. He, at 23, freshly graduated and already obsessed with his rising career. "You don't understand, Ethan," Ashley's voice echoed in his memory. "It's not just a phase. I love Jack, and we're going to be together, whether you and our parents like it or not." He remembered scoffing, dismissing his sister's feelings as teenage infatuation. "Be realistic, Ashley. He's a washed-up musician who will probably be begging on the streets in a year. You have a bright future ahead of you. Don't throw it all away over a summer fling." The argument had escalated quickly. Hurtful words were exchanged, years of unresolved resentments bursting into the open. And then, "Fine," Ashley had shouted, tears streaming down her face. "If that's how you feel, maybe it's better if I leave. Clearly, you don't need me around." Ethan remembered standing there, shocked, as Ashley ran upstairs. Minutes later, she came down with a backpack. "Ashley, don't be ridiculous," he had said, his voice calmer but still condescending. "Where are you going?" "Away from here," she replied, her voice trembling but resolute. "Don't worry, I won't tarnish your precious career or embarrass the family." And with that, she walked out the door, leaving Ethan stunned in her wake. Back in the present, Ethan opened his eyes, the guilt nearly crushing. Why hadn't he gone after her? Why had he let pride and arrogance keep him from reaching out in the days, weeks, and months that followed? Uncle Ethan? Willow's small voice drew him back to the present. He looked down to see the twins standing beside him, their faces a mix of curiosity and worry. "Hello, girls," he said, forcing a smile. "Where have you been?" "In the playroom," answered Harper. "Nurse Brittany took us there while Mommy did her tests." Ethan nodded, grateful for the hospital staff's kindness. "That's good. Did you have fun?" Willow shrugged. "Sort of. We miss Mommy." She hesitated a moment before continuing. "Uncle Ethan, why did you never come visit us before?" The innocent question hit Ethan like a punch in the gut. How could he explain 6 years of absence to a 4-year-old? "It's complicated, Willow," he began carefully. "Sometimes grown-ups make mistakes. I made a very big mistake by not looking for your mom for so long." Harper, ever observant, frowned. "Mommy used to get sad sometimes when she thought we weren't looking. Was it because of you?" Ethan felt his heart clench. "Probably in part," he admitted. "Your mom and I, we drifted apart. And I regret that so much." The girls exchanged looks, processing his words. Just then, the door to the room opened, and Ashley was wheeled back in, looking exhausted, but managing a small smile at the sight of her daughters. While the twins ran to hug their mother, Ethan stepped forward slowly. "How are you feeling?" he asked softly. Ashley sighed. "Tired. But the doctors say the initial results are promising. The new treatment might buy us some time." Ethan nodded, grateful for any positive news. As the girls enthusiastically described their playroom adventures to Ashley, he watched his sister, noticing the love and strength she radiated despite her frail condition. "Ashley," he said, once the girls paused for breath, "I'd like to know more about the last 6 years, if you feel up to talking about it." Ashley looked at him for a long moment, as if gauging his sincerity. Finally, she nodded. "Okay. Girls, why don't you go with Nurse Brittany to get a snack? Mommy needs to talk with Uncle Ethan for a bit." After the twins left, Ashley began to speak. She described the difficult early months after leaving home, discovering her pregnancy, and the fear she felt. She explained how Jack had abandoned her upon learning she was pregnant, and how she'd struggled to survive, working low-paying jobs while taking night classes. With each word, Ethan felt like another piece of his heart was being ripped out. The image of Ashley, young and scared, facing pregnancy and motherhood alone, haunted him. "Why didn't you call me?" he asked, his voice strangled by emotion. "I would have helped, Ashley, no matter what happened between us." Ashley gave a sad smile. "Pride, Ethan. The same pride that tore us apart in the first place. Then, the longer I waited, the harder it got. I saw you in the news, building your empire. It felt like our worlds were too far apart." Ethan closed his eyes, realizing how much he had truly lost. Not only the years with his sister, but also the first precious years of his nieces' lives. "I'm so sorry, Ashley," he whispered. "Sorry I wasn't there. Sorry I let my ambition blind me to what really mattered." Ashley reached out, taking his hand. "We're here now, Ethan. That's what matters." In that moment, looking at his sister, frail yet determined, Ethan made a silent promise. He would not repeat the mistakes of the past. No matter what happened next, he would be there for Ashley and the girls. The empire he built, the success he had chased for so long, all felt empty compared to what truly mattered: family. With a heavy heart, filled with regret and a renewed sense of determination, Ethan prepared himself for whatever the future held, vowing not to waste another precious moment with the family he had nearly lost. The steady beeps of the heart monitors filled Ashley's hospital room, a constant reminder of how fragile her life was. Ethan sat beside his sister's bed, watching her pale face and the tubes that had become part of her daily reality. The last 24 hours had brought a whirlwind of emotions and bad news. Dr. Davis entered the room, his grave expression revealing the seriousness of the situation even before he spoke. "Mr. Carter, may I speak with you for a moment?" Ethan nodded, casting one last worried glance at Ashley before following the doctor into the hallway. Harper and Willow, who had dozed off on a nearby sofa, were gently awakened by a nurse to make space for the conversation. "What's going on, doctor?" Ethan asked, tension evident in his voice. Dr. Davis sighed deeply. "Ashley's condition is deteriorating faster than we anticipated. The conventional treatments aren't achieving the desired effect." Ethan felt his heart sink. "What are our options?" There's an experimental therapy, the doctor explained cautiously. It's a new cellular treatment that has shown promising results in cases similar to Ashley's. However, Ethan pressed, bracing himself for the caveat. The risks are considerable, Dr. Davis continued. We're talking about a procedure that hasn't been fully tested. It could stabilize Ashley's condition, even reverse some of the lung damage, but it could also accelerate her decline. Ethan closed his eyes, feeling the weight of the decision bearing down on him. How long do we have to decide? Not long, the doctor admitted sorrowfully. At the rate her condition is worsening, we're looking at days, maybe a week, at best. Ethan thanked the doctor and returned to Ashley's room, his mind swirling with thoughts and emotions. How could he make a choice that might mean life or death for his sister? And how would he explain it to the twins if she didn't survive? Sitting beside her bed, Ethan gently took her hand. "Oh, Ashley," he whispered, "what should I do?" At that moment, a memory surfaced, clear as day, his mother's voice from years ago. "Family is everything, Ethan. No matter what happens, we always have each other." He realized he didn't have to, and shouldn't, carry this burden alone. With trembling hands, he dialed a phone number he hadn't used in years. The line rang once, twice, 3 times. Ethan was about to hang up when he heard his father's familiar voice. "Hello? Dad?" Ethan said, his voice breaking. "It's me." "Ethan." A stunned silence followed on the other end. "Ethan? Son, is that really you?" "Yes, Dad. I need to talk to you and Mom. It's about Ashley." The mention of Ashley's name seemed to burst the dam of emotions. "Ashley? What happened? Is she okay? We haven't seen her in so long." Ethan took a deep breath, preparing for the difficult words that were about to come. "No, Dad. She's not okay. She's in the hospital. It's serious." What followed was a tense, emotional conversation. Ethan briefly explained Ashley's condition, the discovery of his nieces, and the terrible decision he now faced. How could this happen? His mother's voice came through, clearly in tears. "Why didn't anyone tell us?" "Mom, Ethan began, but his father cut in. "This is not the time for blame," he said firmly. "What matters now is Ashley and those little girls. We're on our way, Ethan. We'll be there as soon as we can." Ethan felt a wave of relief and gratitude. "Thank you," he said softly. I'm sorry for everything." "We all make mistakes, son," his father replied, his voice thick with emotion. "What matters now is that we stand together." After ending the call, Ethan turned his attention back to Ashley. She had woken during the conversation, watching him with tired but alert eyes. "Was that our parents?" she asked, her voice little more than a whisper. Ethan nodded, taking her hand. "Yes." "They're coming, Ashley. They'll be here soon." A tear escaped the corner of Ashley's eye. I thought I'd never see them again." "I know," Ethan said softly. "I thought the same. But we're all here now, and we're going to face this together." Ashley closed her eyes for a moment, as if gathering strength. When she opened them again, there was a look of determination. "The experimental treatment," she said. "Let's do it." Ethan looked at her, surprised. "Are you sure?" "The risks?" "I know the risks," Ashley interrupted gently. "But I have 2 little girls I need to fight for. And now I have my family back. It's worth the risk." Ethan felt a lump in his throat at his sister's courage in the face of such terrifying odds. "All right," he agreed. "We'll do it. Together." Just then, Harper and Willow woke up, rubbing their sleepy eyes. "Mommy?" Willow called, her voice small and worried. Ashley smiled at her daughters, beckoning them closer. As they climbed onto the bed to hug their mother, Ethan watched the scene with renewed love and determination. He knew the days ahead would be grueling, the experimental treatment, their parents' arrival, the explanations they'd have to give the twins. Everything weighed on his mind. But for the first time in years, Ethan didn't feel alone. They were a family once again, imperfect and bruised, but united. And together, they would face whatever the future held. The hospital corridor seemed charged with tension as the elevator doors opened. Richard and Carol Carter stepped out, their faces etched with worry and years of regret. Ethan, who had been pacing anxiously, felt his throat tighten at the sight of his parents for the first time in years. "Mom." "Dad," he said, his voice thick with emotion. Carol immediately pulled her son into a hug, silent tears trailing down her cheeks. Richard, more reserved, squeezed Ethan's shoulder, his eyes reflecting a universe of contained emotion. "How is she?" Carol asked, stepping back from the embrace. Ethan took a deep breath. "I won't lie, it's serious, but Ashley is strong. She's fighting." Richard nodded gravely. "And the girls? Our granddaughters?" The words sounded strange, laden with wonder and the sadness of years lost. Ethan led them toward Ashley's room. "Harper and Willow. They're amazing, so brave and smart. You're going to love them." Entering the room felt like stepping into a time warp. Ashley, pale and frail in the hospital bed, turned her head slowly. Her eyes widened as she saw her parents, a mix of shock, relief, and fear passing over her expression. "Mom? Dad?" Her voice was just a whisper. Carol rushed to the bedside, taking Ashley's hand. "Oh, my baby," she sobbed, years of longing and regret overflowing in her words. Richard approached more slowly, his expression a mask of contained grief. "Ashley," he said quietly, "we've missed you so much." The twins, sitting quietly in a corner of the room, watched with wide eyes. Harper, ever protective, stepped slightly in front of Willow. Ethan noticed the girls' apprehension and walked over to them. "Harper, Willow," he called gently, "come meet your grandparents." The girls approached timidly, hand in hand. Carol turned to them, her eyes shining with tears and wonder. "Hello, darlings," she said softly. "I'm your Grandma Carol, and this is your Grandpa Richard." Willow, always the more outgoing, was the first to speak. "Are you Mommy's mom?" Carol nodded, a trembling smile on her lips. "Yes, I am." "Why didn't you ever visit us before?" Harper asked, her tone serious. A heavy silence fell over the room, the adults exchanging looks filled with guilt and regret. It was Ashley who broke the silence. "It's a long story, sweetheart," she said, her voice weak but determined. "But what matters is that we're all together now." Richard knelt to be at eye level with the girls. "Your mom is right, and I promise we'll make up for all the lost time." Gradually, the initial tension began to dissolve. With the resilience typical of children, the twins soon warmed up to their new grandparents. Willow showed Carol her favorite teddy bear, while Harper peppered Richard with questions about his life. Ethan watched the scene with a mixture of relief and apprehension, barely able to believe his family was together after so long, especially under such circumstances. As the afternoon wore on, the conversation inevitably turned to the past. "Why didn't you ever look for us, Ashley?" Carol asked, her voice shaky. "We would have helped you, no matter what." Ashley closed her eyes briefly. At first, it was pride. Later, fear. Fear of disappointing you even more. "We're the ones who disappointed you," Richard admitted, his voice laced with regret. "We should have been more understanding, should have looked for you." Sensing the growing tension, Ethan stepped in. "What matters is that we're all here now. We need to focus on the present and the future." As if sensing the need to lighten the mood, the twins began sharing stories about their mother. Willow eagerly recounted how Ashley used funny voices when reading bedtime stories, while Harper proudly described how her mother taught her to tie her shoes. These simple, sweet anecdotes served as a powerful reminder of what truly mattered. Richard and Carol's faces lit up with every tale, glimpsing for the first time the life Ashley had built for herself and her daughters. As evening approached, it became clear that Ashley was getting tired. Ethan noticed the signs and gently suggested that his parents rest at a nearby hotel. Before leaving, Carol hugged Ashley tenderly. "We're here now, dear. We're not going anywhere." Richard, tears in his eyes, kissed Ashley's forehead. "Rest, my girl. We'll be back in the morning." The twins, exhausted by the emotionally charged day, fell asleep on the sofa in Ashley's room. Ethan covered them with a blanket, noting how peaceful their little faces looked. Returning to Ashley's side, he took her hand. "How are you feeling?" Ashley smiled faintly. "Tired, but happy. It's good to have everyone together again." Ethan nodded, feeling a mix of hope and worry. "Rest now. Tomorrow is another day." As Ashley drifted off to sleep, Ethan reflected on the events of the day. The family was reunited, but the future was still uncertain. The experimental treatment lay ahead, and with it, a new wave of challenges. But for the first time in years, Ethan didn't feel alone facing these obstacles. They were a family again, imperfect and wounded, but united. And they would face whatever came next, together. The shrill alarm of the medical monitors tore through the air, shattering the fragile peace that had settled over the hospital room. In a matter of seconds, the room was flooded with a medical team, their urgent voices and frantic movements starkly contrasting the silence of moments before. Ethan, who had dozed off in the chair beside Ashley's bed, was jolted awake, his eyes widening in horror at the sight of his sister convulsing, gasping desperately for air. "What's happening?" he shouted, panic evident in his voice. Dr. Davis, who had arrived with the emergency team, didn't look away from Ashley. "Her lungs are collapsing. We need to get her to the ICU immediately." Everything happened in a blur. Ashley was quickly moved onto a gurney and rushed out of the room, leaving Ethan stunned and disoriented. He barely had time to comprehend what was happening before he found himself running down the corridors, following the medical team. Along the way, he encountered his parents, who had just arrived for their morning visit. Carol's face turned pale at the scene, while Richard tried to remain composed, though his trembling hands betrayed him. "What happened?" Carol asked, her voice barely above a whisper. Ethan, still in shock, shook his head. I don't know. She was okay, and then... Her lungs?" Words failed him, but none were needed. The fear in everyone's eyes said it all. The next few hours were a nightmare of waiting and uncertainty. The family gathered in the ICU waiting room, each minute feeling like an eternity. Ethan paced back and forth, unable to stand still, while his parents clung to each other for comfort. Just then, Harper and Willow arrived, brought by a nurse who had been looking after them. The girls, sensing the heavy atmosphere, fell silent, their big eyes filled with fear and confusion. "Where's Mommy?" Willow asked, her voice small and trembling. Ethan knelt in front of his nieces, struggling to find the right words. "Your mom is very sick right now, sweeties. The doctors are doing everything they can to help her." Harper, always the more perceptive, looked him in the eye. "Is she going to die?" The question hit them all like a blow. Carol choked back a sob, while Richard turned away, unable to hide the tears welling up in his eyes. Ethan swallowed hard, feeling the weight of the world on his shoulders. "I don't know, Harper, but we're all here, fighting with her. Your mom is very, very strong." The twins nodded solemnly. Then, to everyone's surprise, they went to their grandparents and gave them silent hugs. It was a moment of pure tenderness amid the chaos, reminding everyone of what truly mattered. Time dragged on. Ethan used every connection and resource at his disposal to ensure Ashley received the best possible care. He made phone calls, sent emails, practically begged renowned specialists to come see his sister. Meanwhile, Carol and Richard sought solace in the hospital chapel. They weren't particularly religious, but in that moment they clung to faith like a lifeline in a storm. The twins, for their part, became the family's unexpected emotional center. Their innocent presence and unwavering love for Ashley served as a constant reminder of what was at stake. They made cards for their mother, told stories of happy moments together, and unknowingly kept hope alive when everything seemed dark. Finally, after what felt like an eternity, Dr. Davis emerged from the ICU. He looked exhausted, but there was a flicker of determination in his eyes. "We managed to stabilize her," he announced, and a collective sigh of relief filled the room. "But it's still critical. The next 24 hours are crucial." Ethan stepped forward, his voice trembling but resolute. "What can we do, Doctor? Is there any treatment? Anything?" Dr. Davis hesitated for a moment before answering. "There is an experimental procedure we could try. It's risky, but at this point, it might be our best chance." "Do it," Ethan said without hesitation. "Do whatever it takes." Carol and Richard exchanged worried glances. "Ethan," his mother began gently, "maybe we should think this through." But Ethan shook his head resolutely. "We don't have time to think, Mom. Ashley is dying. If there's a chance, no matter how small, we have to take it." The silence that followed was heavy, laden with fear and hope in equal measure. Finally, Richard spoke, his voice rough with emotion. "Ethan is right. Ashley would fight with all her strength. We must do the same." Dr. Davis nodded, understanding the gravity of the choice. "I'll start making the preparations immediately. In the meantime, I suggest you spend time with her. Talking to patients in a coma can help, even if we can't be sure they can hear us." With that, he left, leaving the family to process everything that had happened. Ethan turned to the twins, who had remained quiet throughout the conversation. "Harper, Willow," he said gently, "do you want to see your mom? She's sleeping now, but I'm sure she'd love to hear your voices." The girls nodded solemnly, their small faces full of determination. Together, the family entered the ICU, united in their love for Ashley and in their desperate hope that somehow she would find the strength to fight one more time. Gathering around Ashley's bed, surrounded by machines and tubes, Ethan looked at his family. Despite all the past hurt, unspoken words, and lost years, they stood truly united at this moment. And he knew that no matter what happened, they would face it together. The future was uncertain, but one thing was clear. Their love for Ashley was the force that held them together, and it would be that love guiding them through the difficult days ahead. The soft, rhythmic beeping of the heart monitors filled the ICU, a constant soundtrack that had become familiar to the Carter family over the past few days. Ethan sat beside Ashley's bed, his hands holding hers gently, his tired eyes fixed on her pale face. Carol and Richard were on the other side of the bed, exhausted but alert. Harper and Willow had finally been convinced to go home with a babysitter to get some proper rest, but not before leaving dozens of colorful drawings all around the room. It was in this tense moment of stillness that Ashley began to stir. At first the movements were subtle, a slight furrowing of her brow, a tremor in her fingers. Then, slowly, her eyes began to open. Ethan leapt to his feet, his heart pounding. "Ashley," he called softly, hardly daring to hope. "Ashley, can you hear me?" Carol and Richard leaned forward, their faces a mix of hope and fear. Ashley blinked several times, her unfocused eyes trying to adjust to the light. When she finally managed to focus, she locked onto Ethan. "Ethan!" she croaked, her voice raspy and almost inaudible, but to the family gathered there, it was the most beautiful sound in the world. "I'm here, Ashley," Ethan replied, tears of relief streaming down his face. "We're all here." Ashley turned her head slowly, her eyes widening at the sight of her parents. "Mom? Dad?" she whispered, disbelief and emotion evident in her voice. Carol couldn't hold back a sob, taking Ashley's free hand. "Oh, my darling," she cried. "We were so worried." Richard, typically so controlled, had tears in his eyes. "Welcome back, Princess," he said, his voice trembling. Ashley glanced around the room as though trying to piece everything together. "The girls?" she asked, a hint of panic in her voice. "They're okay," Ethan quickly assured her. "They're at home, resting. They've been coming every day, and they left all these drawings for you." Ashley relaxed visibly, a small smile tugging at her lips as she noticed the colorful artwork. Dr. Davis entered, his face lighting up when he saw Ashley awake. After a quick examination, he turned to the family with a relieved smile. "She's doing well. It's nothing short of a miracle, considering how close we came to losing her." His words seemed to break a dam of emotions. Suddenly, everyone was talking at once, years of silence and hurt pouring out. "Ashley, I'm so sorry," Ethan began, his voice quivering. "I should have looked for you. I should have been there for you and the girls." "We failed you, dear," Carol sobbed. "We were so stubborn, so blind." Richard, struggling to maintain composure, added, "Can you ever forgive us, Ashley, for all these lost years?" Tears streamed down Ashley's cheeks as she looked at each of them. When she spoke, her voice was weak but charged with emotion. "I made mistakes too," she said. "I was too proud to ask for help, too scared to come back. I think we all have a lot to forgive." A hush fell over the room, heavy with the weight of unspoken words and unresolved feelings. Ashley broke the silence again, her voice growing stronger with each word. "But we're all here now, aren't we? Together? Maybe. Maybe this is a second chance for all of us." Ethan squeezed Ashley's hand, a shaky smile forming on his lips. "You're right, and we're not going to waste it." In the days that followed, as Ashley regained her strength, the family began the painful but necessary process of healing. Long, emotional conversations took place daily, each family member confronting the ghosts of the past. One afternoon, while Harper and Willow played quietly in the corner of the room, Ashley opened up about her journey as a single mother. "It was terrifying at first," she admitted softly. "Finding out I was pregnant, alone, and scared. There were times I almost came home, almost asked for help. But then I thought about all the harsh words we exchanged, and my pride kept me away." Carol sobbed quietly, while Richard squeezed her hand in support. "When the girls were born, suddenly I had 2 lives depending on me," Ashley continued. "It was the scariest and most wonderful thing I've ever experienced. I worked low-paying jobs, took night classes, did whatever it took to give them a decent life." Ethan shook his head, a mix of admiration and guilt. "You're so strong, Ashley. I was too busy building my empire to see that my own sister was struggling to survive." Ashley reached out gently, touching Ethan's arm. "Don't blame yourself, Ethan. We all made mistakes. What matters is that we're here now, trying to fix things." Harper approached the bed, her big, serious eyes scanning the adults. "Mommy," she asked, "were you sad because you didn't talk to Uncle Ethan and Grandma and Grandpa?" Ashley smiled softly at her daughter. "A little, sweetheart. Sometimes adults do foolish things that make them sad for a long time." Willow, joining her sister, added innocently, "But you're not sad now, right? Because we're all together." The simple wisdom in Willow's words struck the adults deeply. Carol was the first to respond, pulling her granddaughters into a tight hug. "You're absolutely right, my love," she whispered, her voice filled with emotion. "We're together now, and that's all that matters." Richard cleared his throat, tears in his eyes. "You know, Ashley," he began hesitantly, "your mother and I, well, we realize how foolish we've been. Too strict, too inflexible. We should have supported you, no matter what." Ashley nodded, tears glistening. "I should have trusted you enough to ask for help. I guess we all learned some hard lessons." Ethan, who had been silent, finally spoke. "Ashley, I promise that from now on I'll be here for you and the girls, not just as the wealthy brother who can fix everything with money, but as real family. Present, supportive, loving." His words touched something deep within Ashley. She opened her arms, pulling her brother into a tight hug. "Thank you," she whispered. "That means more than you can imagine." The twins, sensing the emotional shift, ran to join the hug. Soon, Carol and Richard joined in, and the Carter family found themselves in a collective embrace, tears and laughter blending in a cathartic release. When they finally drew apart, the air felt lighter, as though an invisible burden had been lifted. The wounds of the past, though still present, were beginning to heal. The future, once so uncertain, now seemed filled with possibilities. In the following days, Ashley continued her recovery, not just physically, but emotionally. The family spent hours talking, laughing, and sometimes crying together. In many instances, the twins served as bridges between the adults, their simple questions and candid observations often leading to deep, necessary conversations. One afternoon, while Ashley rested, Ethan found himself alone with his parents in the hospital cafeteria. "You know," he began hesitantly, "I think I always blamed you both for what happened with Ashley. I thought that if you had been more understanding, she never would have left." Carol set down her cup of coffee, her eyes sad. "And we blamed ourselves for not being the parents you both deserved. We were too focused on our expectations to really listen to our children." Richard nodded solemnly. "But now we have a chance to make it right. With Ashley, with you, Ethan, and our wonderful granddaughters." Ethan smiled, feeling a surge of affection for his parents that he hadn't felt in years. "I'm looking forward to that," he said honestly, "to really being a family again." Back in Ashley's room, the twins were proudly showing off their latest drawings to their mother. "Look, Mommy," Willow said excitedly, "I drew all of us together. See, there's you, Uncle Ethan, Grandma and Grandpa, and me and Harper." Ashley smiled, her heart swelling with love. "It's beautiful, sweetheart. We're one big happy family, aren't we?" Harper, always perceptive, asked, "Mommy, now that everyone is together again, will we see Uncle Ethan and Grandma and Grandpa more often?" Ashley paused for a moment, years of pain and distrust battling against the desire for a fresh start. Finally, she answered, "Yes, sweetheart. I think we will. We have a lot of lost time to make up for." Just then, Ethan and his parents returned, bringing with them an air of anticipation and hope. "What are we talking about?" Ethan asked, noticing the smiles on Ashley's and the girls' faces. "About being a family," Ashley answered, her voice filled with emotion. "About new beginnings and second chances." Ethan sat on the edge of the bed, taking Ashley's hand. "You know," he said thoughtfully, "I spent so many years constructing my empire, chasing success and wealth. But in the last few days I've realized that the greatest treasure was here all along. Family, love, connection." Carol and Richard drew closer, forming a small circle around Ashley's bed. "We've all learned valuable lessons," Carol said softly. "And while we can't change the past, we can certainly shape our future." Richard, usually so reserved, surprised them by suggesting, "How about we start right now? When Ashley is discharged, we could all go to a lakeside cabin for a while, spend time together, really reconnect." The twins squealed in delight at the idea, while the adults exchanged looks of surprise and then agreement. "I think that's a wonderful idea, Dad," Ashley said, her voice catching with emotion. "A new beginning, by the water." Ethan nodded, a genuine smile lighting up his face. "I agree. It's time we created some happy new memories." As the family began making animated plans for cabin activities and game nights, Ashley leaned back against her pillows, watching them with a full heart. Just a few weeks ago, she had been fighting alone, carrying the world's weight on her shoulders. Now, though still recovering physically, she felt stronger than ever. The road ahead wouldn't be easy. There were still difficult conversations to be had and old wounds to be fully healed. But as she looked at her daughter's radiant faces, her brother finally by her side, and her parents back in her life, Ashley knew they would face it all together. The Carter family had been given a second chance, an opportunity to correct past mistakes and build a future filled with love, understanding, and unity. And they were determined not to waste it. The afternoon sun streamed through the windows of Ashley's hospital room, casting a golden glow over her as she sat on the bed, flipping through a photo album with her daughters. Ethan stood by the door, his heart brimming with a mixture of love and determination. Over the past few days, as Ashley's discharge approached, Ethan had spent countless hours thinking about the future. The idea of his sister and nieces returning to the cramped apartment they'd lived in before her hospitalization weighed on him. He wanted to offer more, the safety and comfort they deserved. With a sigh, Ethan stepped into the room, his expression serious yet gentle. "Ashley, can we talk for a moment? In private?" Ashley looked up, curiosity clear in her eyes. "Sure, Ethan. Girls, why don't you go see if Grandma and Grandpa have arrived yet?" Harper and Willow, always eager for a mission, jumped off the bed and left the room, their footsteps echoing down the corridor. Ethan took a seat in the chair beside the bed, his hands restless. "Ashley, I've been thinking a lot about what happens when you leave the hospital." Ashley frowned slightly, a note of concern in her voice. "What do you mean?" "Well," Ethan began, carefully choosing his words, "I'm not comfortable with you and the girls going back to that tiny apartment, especially considering your ongoing recovery." Ashley sat up straighter, a defensive spark in her eyes. "Ethan, I appreciate your concern, but that apartment is our home. We're fine there." Ethan drew a deep breath, sensing how delicate the topic was. "I know, Ashley, and I'm not suggesting you give up your independence. But what if we found a compromise? A bigger house, closer to me and Mom and Dad, where you could have more space and support?" Ashley was silent for a moment, clearly torn by conflicting emotions. "Ethan, I can't accept a house from you. It's too much." "It's not a gift, Ashley," Ethan said gently. "Think of it as an investment in our family. You can pay a fair rent if it makes you feel better. What matters is that you and the girls are safe and comfortable." Ashley bit her lip, years of pride and self-reliance battling the idea of a better life for her daughters. "I don't know, Ethan. What if it creates a strange dynamic between us? What if I feel indebted?" Ethan took her hand, his eyes sincere. "Ashley, you're my sister. The girls are my nieces. There's no debt between family. I just want to help, to be part of your lives in a meaningful way." Ashley sighed, her eyes brimming with tears. "It's just that for so long, it was just me, fighting, getting by, doing everything alone. It's hard to accept help now." Ethan nodded sympathetically. "I understand, and I deeply admire your strength. But you don't have to do it alone anymore. We're all here now, wanting to support you and the girls." A comfortable silence filled the room as Ashley mulled over Ethan's words. Finally, she spoke, her voice soft but resolute. "Okay, let's consider it, but with some conditions." Ethan leaned forward, eager. "Of course. Anything you want." "First," Ashley said, "I want a say in choosing the house. It needs to be a place where I feel at home, not just a property you picked." Ethan nodded eagerly. "Absolutely. In fact, I was hoping we could look together." "Second," Ashley continued, "I'm paying rent, a fair market value. I don't want special favors." Ethan hesitated, but seeing Ashley's determination, agreed. "All right, we can set up a formal lease if that helps you feel better." Ashley relaxed a bit, a small smile forming. "And third, this doesn't mean you can just drop by unannounced whenever you like. We still need our space and routine." Ethan chuckled, relief evident in his voice. "I promise I'll respect your privacy. I'll always call first." With the agreement in place, they spent the next hour discussing potential locations and types of houses. Ethan showed Ashley listings he had saved on his tablet, and soon they were enthusiastically weighing the pros and cons of different neighborhoods and architectural styles. When Harper and Willow returned with their grandparents, they found Ashley and Ethan leaning over the tablet, laughing and pointing at photos. "What are you guys doing?" Willow asked curiously. Ashley and Ethan exchanged smiles before Ashley answered. "Well, girls, we're thinking of moving to a new house when I leave the hospital." "What do you think?" The twins reacted immediately and excitedly. Harper began listing all the things she wanted in her new room, while Willow bounced up and down, asking if they could have a garden for flowers. Carol and Richard watched the scene with emotional smiles. "Looks like you two have come to an agreement," Richard observed proudly. Ethan nodded, putting an arm around Ashley's shoulders. "Yes, we're taking a new step, as a family." As the afternoon wore on, the hospital room filled with laughter and shared dreams. Plans were made to visit houses, debates arose over decoration ideas, and lively discussions erupted about the best color for the living room walls. For Ashley, though she still felt a twinge of apprehension at accepting help, there was a growing sense of hope and possibility. She looked around the room at her reunited family, her excited daughters, her caring brother, her loving parents, and for the first time in a long while, she truly felt at home. The future, once so uncertain and frightening, now glowed with promise. A new home meant more than just a change of address. It was a symbol of a new beginning for all of them, and Ashley was ready to embrace this new journey with her family by her side. The sound of laughter and the aroma of fresh coffee filled the living room of what would soon be the Carter family's new home. Ashley, seated comfortably on the newly purchased sofa, watched with a smile as her daughters, Harper and Willow, darted around, carrying color samples and fabric swatches. "Mommy, look, wouldn't this blue be lovely in my room?" Willow squealed, holding up a strip of sky blue wallpaper. Ashley nodded, her heart brimming with joy at her daughter's excitement. "It's beautiful, sweetie. It suits you perfectly." Ethan walked into the room, carrying a tray of coffees and hot chocolate for the girls. "So, how's the decorating going?" he asked, distributing the drinks. "Uncle Ethan," Harper said seriously, "do you think I can have a floor-to-ceiling bookshelf in my room?" Ethan laughed, exchanging a knowing look with Ashley. "Well, we'll have to measure to be sure, but I don't see why not." The past few weeks had been a whirlwind of activity and emotions. Ever since Ashley received word that she could be discharged, the Carter family had come together with a single goal: to prepare the new house, soon to be the Maplewood residence, for Ashley and the twins. The home, a charming two-story residence with a small garden, had been carefully chosen by Ashley and Ethan. Nestled in a quiet neighborhood halfway between Ethan's place and their parents', it offered the perfect balance of close family support and the independence that Ashley so valued. Carol and Richard walked in, carrying boxes of decorations. "Look what we found in the attic," Carol announced excitedly. "Some items from your childhood, Ashley. We thought you might like a few nostalgic touches in your new place." Ashley carefully took the box, tears filling her eyes at the sight of old toys and family photos. "Oh, Mom, this is wonderful. Thank you." Richard placed a hand on Ashley's shoulder. "We're so glad to be part of this, honey. To be here for you and the girls." Their moment was interrupted by Willow, who picked up an old photo of Ashley and Ethan as children. "Mommy, is this you and Uncle Ethan? You both look so happy." Ashley took the photo, a nostalgic smile on her face. "Yes, that's us. It was during a summer camping trip. Remember, Ethan?" Ethan walked over and glanced at the photo over Ashley's shoulder. "How could I forget? That was when you insisted on waterproofing our tent, and we ended up sleeping under the stars because it collapsed." Everyone laughed, and the air was filled with stories. Ashley and Ethan recounted memories of their childhood, while Carol and Richard chimed in with details and their own perspectives. The twins listened, enchanted, discovering a part of their family history they had never known. As the day wore on, the house came to life. In Harper's room, Ethan and Richard worked together to build the coveted bookshelf, their quiet voices discussing lost time and future plans. "You know, Dad," Ethan said, adjusting a shelf, "I'm really grateful we're all together again. I'm sorry for the time we lost." Richard paused, looking at his son. "Me too, Ethan. But the important thing is that we're here now, rebuilding not just this house, but our family." In the next room, Ashley and Carol painted Willow's walls in the chosen shade of blue. The smell of fresh paint mingled with the sound of their laughter. "Mom," Ashley began hesitantly, "I want to thank you for being here, for supporting me, for everything." Carol set the paint roller aside, turning to her daughter with tearful eyes. "Oh, Ashley, we should be thanking you for giving us a second chance, for letting us be part of the girls' lives." They embraced, years of misunderstandings and hurt dissolving in that simple yet profound gesture. Meanwhile, in the kitchen, Harper and Willow had taken charge of organizing utensils, turning it into a game of sorting items by size and color. "Harper," Willow said thoughtfully, holding up a wooden spoon, "do you think we'll be happy here?" Harper paused, considering the question with all the seriousness of a 4-year-old. "I think so. Mommy seems happier, right? And we have Uncle Ethan and Grandma and Grandpa close by now." Harper nodded, a grin spreading across her face. "That's true. And we have bigger rooms." The girls' giggles echoed through the house, a sound that warmed every adult heart. As evening rolled in, the family gathered in the living room, surrounded by half-open boxes and furniture still out of place. Pizza was ordered, and everyone sat on the floor, forming an impromptu circle. "So," Ethan said, looking around at his family, "what does everyone think so far?" "I love it," Willow piped up at once. "My room is the color of the sky." "And I get space for all my books," Harper added with a satisfied smile. Ashley looked at her daughters, then at her brother and parents. "It's more than I ever imagined," she said quietly. "Not just the house, but this. All of us together." Carol took Ashley's hand, squeezing it gently. "This is how it always should have been, sweetheart. And it's how it will be from now on." Richard raised his slice of pizza in a makeshift toast. To the Carter family, to new beginnings and rebuilt bridges. Everyone lifted their slices, laughing and agreeing. The night continued with shared stories, plans for the future, and comfortable silences. Eventually, the twins fell asleep on the rug, surrounded by wallpaper samples and fabric swatches. As Ashley tucked a blanket around her sleeping daughters, she felt a wave of gratitude so strong it nearly overwhelmed her. Glancing around at her family, Ethan quietly organizing boxes, her parents tidying up after dinner, she realized this new home was so much more than walls and a roof. It was a symbol of forgiveness, unconditional love, and second chances. A place where old wounds could heal and new memories would be made. In every sense, it was a new start. When everyone finally said goodnight, promising to return early the next morning to continue unpacking, Ashley found herself alone in the living room. She walked slowly through the house, her fingers trailing over the freshly painted walls, her heart brimming with hope for the future. This house, Ashley thought, was not just a place to live. It was a testament to her family's resilience, a monument to the power of forgiveness and love. And as moving day approached, she knew she wasn't just relocating to a new address. She was beginning a whole new chapter of her life, with her family by her side, stronger and more united than ever. The morning sun bathed the front of the new Maplewood residence in warmth, the windows reflecting the promise of a fresh day. A small group had gathered on the doorstep. Ethan, looking both anxious and determined, Carol and Richard, each carrying boxes and hopeful smiles, and the twins, Harper and Willow, brimming with energy and excitement. The sound of an approaching vehicle made them all turn. It was the hospital transport van, bringing Ashley home, bringing her to their new home. Ethan was the first to move, opening the vehicle door and extending a hand to his sister. "Welcome to your new home, Ashley," he said, his voice husky with emotion. Ashley took Ethan's hand, her eyes shining with gratitude and a touch of apprehension. She paused when her feet touched the ground, taking in the view of the house and her gathered family. "Mommy!" The twins' voices broke the silence, and in seconds, Ashley was enveloped in tight hugs from Harper and Willow. "Oh, my little ones," Ashley murmured, kissing the tops of their heads. "We're finally home, aren't we?" Carol stepped forward, tears in her eyes. "Come on, dear. Let's go inside and get you settled." As the family entered the house, the air was charged with emotion and anticipation. Ashley looked around, amazed at the transformation that had taken place in recent weeks. Once empty walls were now adorned with family photos and colorful artwork chosen by the twins. Carefully selected furniture filled the rooms, creating a cozy, welcoming environment. "It's perfect," Ashley whispered, her voice trembling slightly. "I don't even know how to thank all of you." Ethan placed an arm around his sister. "You don't have to thank us, Ashley. This is what family does." Richard, carrying the last of Ashley's bags, smiled at his daughter. "We're so happy you're here, Princess. This house was waiting for you." The twins, unable to contain their excitement, grabbed Ashley's hands. "Come on, Mommy. We want to show you our rooms." Ashley laughed, letting herself be guided by her daughters. The rest of the family followed close behind, eager to witness her reaction. First stop was Harper's room. The walls were painted a soft green, and the promised floor-to-ceiling bookshelf dominated one wall. Harper ran over to her new desk, grabbing a drawing. "Look, Mommy, I drew our entire family in our new house." Ashley took the drawing, tears in her eyes as she saw the stick figures representing all of them: Ethan, Carol, Richard, Harper, Willow, and herself. "It's beautiful, Harper. We'll frame it and hang it in the living room, okay?" Next was Willow's sky room. The soft blue walls created a serene atmosphere, and little white clouds were painted near the ceiling. "Look, Mommy. Grandpa helped me put up glow-in-the-dark stars." Willow pointed to the ceiling, where dozens of tiny star stickers formed constellations. Ashley hugged her daughters, a wave of love and gratitude washing over her. "Your rooms are wonderful, my dears. You must have worked so hard." "We all did," Ethan said with a smile. It was a family effort. Heading back downstairs, they all gathered in the living room. Carol had prepared tea and cookies, and everyone settled onto the sofas and chairs. "You know," Richard began, looking around at his reunited family, "just a few months ago, I never could have imagined us all here like this." Carol nodded, taking her husband's hand. "So much time lost, so much pain. But look at us now." "We're here, together," Ethan interjected, his gaze drifting from Ashley to the twins and then to his parents. A family again. Ashley, who had been quiet until then, finally spoke. I want to thank all of you, not just for the house, but for not giving up on me, on us." She looked at her daughters, who were playing happily on the rug. "For so long, I thought I had to do everything alone, that asking for help was weakness." Ethan leaned forward, his expression serious. "Ashley, you're the strongest person I know, raising these wonderful girls on your own, fighting such a serious illness. You're incredible. And now," Carol added softly, "you're not alone anymore. We're all here, ready to support you and the girls in whatever you need." Richard cleared his throat, visibly moved. "You know, Ashley, your mother and I made a lot of mistakes. We were too hard, too inflexible. But if you'll give us the chance, we'd like to make up for all that lost time." Ashley looked at her parents, years of hurt and resentment melting away in the face of their obvious love. "I'd love that," she said softly. The twins, sensing the importance of the moment, approached Ashley. Harper, the ever-observant one, asked, "Mommy, does that mean we'll see Uncle Ethan and Grandma and Grandpa more often now?" Ashley smiled, pulling her daughters into a hug. "Yes, sweetheart. We'll see a lot more of them from now on." Watching the scene, Ethan felt a surge of emotion. For years, he had focused on constructing skyscrapers, expanding his corporate empire. But in that moment, as he looked at his reunited family, Ashley smiling genuinely for the first time in years, his parents doting on their granddaughters, and the twins filling the house with laughter, he realized that his greatest project, his greatest achievement, wasn't a building, but the rebuilding of these nearly lost family bonds. "You know," he said, drawing everyone's attention, "I spent years building things, towers, companies, fortunes, but nothing compares to this. To us, here together." Carol smiled at her son. "You're right, Ethan. This, our family, is the real treasure." As the afternoon wore on, the house filled with the twins' giggles, the aroma of dinner being prepared, and the sound of lively conversation. Ashley, reclining on the sofa and watching it all, felt a peace she hadn't known in years. This was more than just a new home. It was a new beginning for all of them, a chance to heal old wounds, create new memories, and strengthen the bonds that held them together. When evening came and the twins were tucked into bed, Ashley found herself alone on the porch, gazing at the stars. Ethan joined her, offering a mug of tea. "So," he asked softly, "how are you feeling?" Ashley smiled, a genuine smile that lit her face. "At home," she replied simply. "Truly at home." And as the siblings stood side by side under the night sky, they both knew this new chapter of their lives would be filled with love, forgiveness, and most of all, family. The future, once so uncertain, now shone with promise and infinite possibilities.